What is up, everybody? Welcome to the MMA Engine. This is probability for UFC Austin. We're going to take a data-driven look into 14 fights from a betting perspective. We're going to look at the props. We're going to look at the fight goes, that doesn't go, the overs, the unders, all the good stuff. We're going to have the data to back it all up. So really looking forward to it. As always, I'm here with Uncle Weezy. Uncle Weezy, what is up? You looking forward to breaking this down?
Yeah, definitely. You know, we've been working hard today. This is the second show that we've done in a row, but that's what we do, Brady. We find ways to make money on betting on fights, and we've got some looks, we've got some data, we've got some tape study notes to go through here, but it's all going to culminate in the PP at the end of the show, the probability parlay, where we can stack cash tickets like flapjacks by using the data to point us in the right direction on all these time props.
Let us do it. So we have no time to waste here, but before we do get into it, let us quickly shout out the chat. Thank you all for hanging out with us on a Thursday. We got Brandon, first one in there. We got Daz saying, let's go. Daz was in the last stream. Brandon was as well. Even Mushroom was in their last stream. Brady Weezy, probability is awesome. Looking for some violence there. Mike in the chat. We got Eric Betts Fights, who we were talking to last stream there. We got Paul Pierce, Raw Torque, Lamar, Prince of Mischief. Thank you all for hanging out. If you guys can please leave a like. That does go a very, very long way. So let us start with the very first fight of the night. We have Kyle Dawkins going against Roman Dolidze. We have minus 110. Fight doesn't go to we have minus 110. Fight doesn't go to decision. This is on Bet Online. The fight goes to decision minus 120. The over under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 175, and the under 2.5 is plus 145. Weezy, this is one we just talked about, and I believe you placed a bet on this one. So kind of talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. So we can see right here, both these guys are really good finishers. 16 of 20 combined wins inside the distance, but neither one of them has ever been finished as a pro. So, you know, they're both very durable. So they've finished, out of their 24 combined pro fights, 2/3 of them have finished inside the distance. But we go over here to the UFC side, and under the fight doesn't go to decision banner there, we see a bunch of red here. And that's because only 2 of 6 wins finishing inside the distance and 0 of 3 losses finishing inside the distance for these two guys combined. We do have a no contest in there, so that gets thrown out. 2 of 10 combined fights for these guys have finished inside the distance. It's not nearly good enough, seeing as we're paying for the fight doesn't go to decision, a 51% implied probability. And when we scroll down here, you know, we're seeing that 7 out of their 10 combined fights have finished inside or have went to decision. So that is 70%. And right now we see that that's a 15% edge over the implied probability of the line and a 25% edge over the divisional decision rate. So, you know, we like this one. And stylistically, it just feels like a fight that we have 2 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts here who don't really knock people out. You know, it's going to be really hard for them to submit each other, and neither one of them is really known for their power. So I see this fight going to decision, and we've seen only 2 of their 10 combined fights at the UFC level finishing inside the distance. So it feels like a great smash spot to start us off.
Yep, I like it, and the analysis lines up right up for me. I like how both guys are very durable. Both guys are very good grapplers. I think it kind of cancels out. I think the fight goes to decision. Minus 120 is a very solid look. Looks like that is the best price tag out there. Over 2.5, minus 175. That's the worst price out there on Bet Online. I see a minus 138 for that over, but yeah, I think the fight goes kick off the night with an over. Weezy. Both guys very tough. I like it. Let us move on to the next fight. We have Phil Hawes going against Winn. We have the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 155. The fight goes to decision at plus 125. The over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 112 on Bet Online. The under 2.5 is minus 118. And yeah, this is a kind of a tricky one, Weezy, because I personally think Phil Hawes goes out here and starches Winn and does it very early on. I'm curious to see where the numbers kind of line up with this one in terms of a fight goes or fight doesn't go on some of these props.
So we can see right here that 16 of their 22 fights have finished inside the distance, 72.7%. Right now, the divisional finish rate for 185 pounders is sitting at 55%. So they're finishing as pros at a much better rate than that. But if we go over here to the UFC side, we see 4 of 9 fights finishing inside the distance. So it's less than 50%. Definitely not something we want to be paying juice for. And the way I look at this fight is that Winn's not finishing anybody at this level. I mean, he's a pure wrestler who wins minutes on the ground. He doesn't have power on the feet. He doesn't have great ground and pound, and he struggles to even hold his opponent down. So, on the Darren Winn side, I see almost no finishing equity. Even though Hawes has been said to be chinny, he's being chinny against guys that can actually hit, guys like Nasruddin Imavov, but other than that, we're really seeing Darren Winn hurting nobody. So I kind of feel like if you're on the fight doesn't go to decision line here, you're probably just better off betting Hawes inside the distance, because Hawes inside the distance is plus 120. The fight doesn't go as minus 130. I'd rather save that 50 cents and just bet Hawes inside the distance, because I see no finishing upside for Winn. That's just my personal opinion, but he's never finished anyone at this level. And you can if you're not knocking Eric Spicely out, I don't really know how you're going to knock out Phil Hawes. Phil Hawes has been in there with some real killers. And not to mention, we look at a guy like Jacob Malkoun, and he's the archetype of fighter that Darren Winn is. And you saw what Hawes did to this guy. I think it's because Malkoun knew, I'm not going to be able to wrestle this guy. He's a junior college national champion. Hawes is a very good wrestler in his own right. So I see Hawes having the advantage literally everywhere except for wrestling. And in the wrestling, I see it only as a slight edge for Darren Winn. So if you're on that Winn side, maybe bet fight goes to decision. If you're on the Hawes side, maybe just bet Hawes inside the distance or parlay the money line. But as far as the time props go here, they look fairly well priced. The fight doesn't go to decision, though, however, is overpriced by about 12.1% based on the implied probability of the line. And when we go down here to the decision, we see we're getting a 3.2% edge on the decision. But my personal feeling is I wouldn't bet fight goes to decision, because I think Hawes is going to melt this dude in the first.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I actually did bet the fight doesn't go earlier in the week at minus 120. The reason I did that, because I agree. I think Hawes does finish Darren Winn, but there really wasn't much of a difference in terms of the price tag. So it does cover, I personally think Hawes is extremely chinny. If Winn does catch him, I think it covers that as well. But yeah, I mostly agree. I think Hawes has a really good chance to finish him. Hawes inside the distance, though, looks like money's coming in on it. It's only plus 105 on most books that are available. And that fight doesn't go decision line looks like it is getting hit there. So, but I got earlier in the week minus 120. I like that line. But I do think it's going to be Hawes more often than not getting that finish, and probably very early as well. Let's move on to the next fight. We have an interesting one. We have Cody Stamann going against Eddie Wineland. The fight doesn't go to decision. It's sitting at plus 110. The fight goes to decision is sitting at minus 140. The over-under set at 2.5. The over 2.5 minus 150. The under 2.5 is plus 120. This is a really, really tricky one for me because, I think it could very well finish, but you're just asking a guy in Cody Stamann who has no finish in the UFC to go out there and get his very first finish. And Eddie Wineland is a great finisher in his own right, but he's going to go out there and knock out Cody Stamann. This is one, just a fight in general, I'm staying far away from. I think the fight could finish, but I feel like we're getting no value at that line, Weezy.
I just think that this fight is trash from a betting perspective, especially on the money line side and the prop side. But at least for the time props, you don't get time props severely overpriced or underpriced in this situation, because we've got a guy in Wineland whose UFC fights have finished inside the distance 60% of the time, but for Stamann, it's only 20% of the time. So you've got a decisionator against a guy who's, been to 40% decisions at the UFC level, but is also getting finished at almost a 50% clip. He's getting older. But the thing is, the one thing that would really fire me up is if I said, Wineland's just washed. I think Stamann finishes him. And then you bet it and it doesn't happen. And you're like, man, I just bet on Cody Stamann to finish somebody who's 0 for 5 at the UFC level in his wins at getting finishes. And it's not like this dude's beating world beaters either. It's not like, he just had grinding fights against really good competition. No, his wins are okay. So you would expect that if he had any finishing equity at all, that he would be able to finish this fight. So we see here 11 of their 25 combined fights, Brady, have finished inside the distance. That's 44%. And the line for fight doesn't go is 43.4%. So it's priced perfectly. And then if we go down here, we're going to see something that's overpriced by about 5.5%, because 13 of their 25 fights have went to decision. Actually 14. It's 56%. The divisional decision rate is about 52%, 51%. So it's 5% better than that, but it's 5% worse than the implied probability of the line. So a fight that's trash from a betting perspective, it's not surprising that the time props would be perfectly priced, making them trash as well. Staying away from this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing I can bet. I mean, yeah, I think Stamann could knock him out, but they're not giving you a discount. They're only giving you like, what is it? Stamann inside the distance is only like plus 155, plus 190. Like you said on the last show, like you need to get a much better line for Stamann to go out there and get his very first finish. So I think it's an easy pass for me. I'm going to be a fighter to sit back and watch, and including this one. My goodness, we have Gloria de Paula going against Maria Oliveira. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 300. The under 2.5 is plus 240. The fight goes to decision is minus 280. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 220. I really would be. I'm not. There's nothing I'd bet on this fight, Weezy. But let's talk about the numbers a little bit.
Yeah, women's 115-pound fights finish only 30% of the time, 3 out of 10 times. And we see that these ladies at the pro level are finishing 55% of the time, so much better than the divisional finish rate. But, they're fighting a lot of regional scene competition. And here at the UFC level, we see only one of their 5 fights have finished inside the distance. So that's a problem if you're betting for violence here. Even though you're getting that plus 250 for fight doesn't go, that's a 28.57% implied probability. So we're getting a 1.57% edge, but we're actually overpaying by 8.6% based on these ladies' combined UFC finish rates. At the decision side, for fight goes, we're underpaying by about 3.5%, but we have to notice that, they have been finished inside the distance before one time. So that's, troublesome. And for the fight goes to decision, you're laying minus 325. So when you're laying, 3.25 units to win one, you want to have more than a couple percent edge. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's hard to get that, but when, you need to be very sure when you're betting that. And this is low-level women's MMA. So just on its own, I'd say I'd rather be on that plus money side, because when I'm betting low-level women's MMA, it's just much easier to look myself in the mirror and say I made a good bet if it lost, if I'm holding a big plus money ticket. It's those paying juice on women's MMA and then being wrong. Those are the kind of losses that stick with you and really get you rethinking things that you probably don't have to rethink. So staying away from this one, dude. Like I say, I would probably go for the fight doesn't go because it's plus, but I just don't see any reason to bet this.
Yeah, if anything. I mean, FanDuel has the fight goes to decision at minus 370 and the fight doesn't go at plus 260. I'm not laying minus 370 on this fight. I'm not betting anything in general, but yeah, I think it probably goes to decision, but I don't want to lay minus 300 to find out. But we can definitely move on to the next fight. We have Ricardo Ramos going against Danny Chavez. The over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 185. The under 2.5 is plus 155. The fight goes to decision is minus 170. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 140. What do we got here, Weezy?
So we've got 4 of their 12 combined fights between Ramos and Chavez at the UFC level have finished inside the distance. That's 33%. So on the fight doesn't go to decision, we're paying 41%, which is a little bit better, 1.5% better than the divisional finish rate of 43.21%. But what it's worse than by 8.3% is the combined finish rate of these two fighters at the UFC level. Ramos has been finished in 2 of 3 losses, but Chavez not a finisher. And then Ramos has finished 1/3 of his UFC wins, but Chavez has never been finished at the UFC level, and he's only been finished in 1 of 4 career losses. So I like the fight goes here, but it is juiced up. Minus 165 is a little bit pricey, but when we go down here, we're going to see that 8 of their 12 fights have went to decision. The 1 draw is not included in the 7 of 12, so it is actually 66.7%. We're getting a 4.4% edge over the books based on that 8 of 12 fights going to decision. and we're getting about a 10% edge over the divisional decision rate, which is 56%. So I think the fight goes to decision at minus 165. If you're putting together a parlay, it's actually not a bad look. So I think the minus 165 is bettable here. It wouldn't be what I would call overpriced.
Yeah, I agree. And I do like Ramos in this fight. I don't like the price tag, but I like the fact that Chavez is very, very durable. The guy has a great chin on him. He's a black belt in his own right. So, yeah, I don't hate that. I don't hate the minus 165 that is currently on DraftKings Sportsbook. That is the second or third best price out there. Looks like Five Diamonds has minus 160. And then I see a minus 163 that is on Betway there. So, yeah, I think the fight goes is something that I do like this week as well. Let us keep moving on. Before we do so, if you guys have not yet already, be sure to leave a like. It does go a long way. And then also be sure to subscribe here on the MMA Engine if you are not already. And do want to thank you guys once again for letting us hit 1,000 subscribers. All thanks to you guys. Thank you all so much for the support. It does mean a ton. Let us move on to the next fight, though. We have Court McGee going against Jeremiah Wells. We have the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 185. The under 2.5 plus 155. The fight goes to decision is minus 160. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 130. That's on Bet Online, but it looks like FanDuel does have a minus 138 sitting out there for the fight goes. Weezy, what is sticking out here on this one? I think you're muted.
Did you say minus 138 for fight goes right now on this one?
I did say that, yes.
Wow, okay. So minus 138 for fight goes to decision is a 58% implied probability here. So that's 6.37% better than the divisional decision rate of 51.62%. So we're actually overpaying there. But if you go down here, whoa, what happened there? Okay. If you go down to the decision numbers here, you're going to see that 16 of their 21 combined fights have went to decision at the UFC level. That's 76.2%, which is 18.2% better than the implied probability of the line going to decision at minus 138. And it's 24.6% better than the divisional decision rate, which is 52%. So this is what I would call a pretty smash spot right here. Now, you do have to worry about Wells being a good finisher. 8 of 10 wins inside the distance for Jeremiah Wells. However, Court McGee is one of the most durable men on the planet. He's only been finished once in 31 professional fights, and he's been in there with a lot tougher guys than Jeremiah Wells. So fight goes to decision at minus 138 is definitely a bettable line here.
Yeah, and that's actually the best line out there by a mile. So FanDuel minus 138, fight goes to decision. DraftKings has minus 165, Bet Online minus 160. So yeah, FanDuel's the best out there by a really decent margin there.
It's a really good one. I was actually kind of shocked that you said that. So yeah, minus 138 for fight goes to decision. So far we got 3 fight goes bets that are sticking out, Brady. The Kutateladze fight goes at minus 120. The Ramos Chavez fight goes at minus 165, and the McGee Wells fight goes at minus 138.
Yeah, as a violence better, I don't like to hear that, but yeah, they're great spots. I think we're saving the violence for the main card. So yeah, prelims, I think there are some really good spots here for those overs and those fight goes. Let us move on to the next fight, and oh boy, we have Jasmine, Jazz the Vicious going against Natalia Silva. We have the over 2.5 is minus 215. The under 2.5 is plus 175. And this is kind of interesting for a women's fight here. We have the fight goes decision is minus 215 and the fight doesn't go as plus 175. But on DraftKings Sportsbook, they actually have the fight goes to decision at minus 180. Same thing for FanDuel. So we're not having to pay that crazy minus 300 for a women's fight to go to decision. But I'll tell you, Weezy, I'm not running to bet anything in this fight as well. So what do the numbers say about this one? Because we're getting a kind of a discount, if you will, on this fight to go to decision.
Okay, so fight goes is minus 180?
Yeah.
Dude, it was minus 260 earlier in the week. So there's a bunch of money coming in on the fight doesn't go. So minus 180 for fight goes. What do we have for the fight doesn't go?
The fight doesn't go is plus 130 on DraftKings.
Plus 130 on DraftKings. And then the over 2.5, what do you have for that? Best line.
Looks like minus 210.
Minus 210 and under?
Plus 165.
Okay. Yeah, these lines have moved quite a bit. Now, we don't have much UFC data here, so let's look at the left side of the sheet. 16 of their 26 fights have finished inside the distance. That's 61.5%, 21% better than the divisional finish rate, 18% better than the divisional or the line. But both of Jasdovicia's UFC fights have went the distance. That's 2 of 2. So, 38.5% of their fights have went to decision overall. What are we getting here on the line for fight goes? We're getting 64%. So these lines look pretty well priced for what I would say would be the divisional finish rate. 40.4% of women's flyweight 3-round fights finish inside the distance. And we're getting 43.4% implied probability for the fight doesn't go. And we're getting 37% implied probability for the under 2.5. These are finishing at 36.42%. So it appears to me that the line is priced based on the benchmarks for the division. So what do we think? Do we think Silva and Jasdovicius are finishing at a higher rate or a lower rate than that in this particular matchup? The fight doesn't go at plus 130. I just need better. I need better than that. I'm overpaying based on this line. So it looks like it's priced perfectly. We have very little UFC data. The pre-UFC data doesn't tell us much because they're fighting regional scene competition. And the difference between regional scene competition and women's MMA and men's MMA is huge. So, this is a huge stay away from me. We don't have enough data here. And the data that we do have says that all of these lines we're giving just a little bit to the books. 1.31% here, 4.17% here, 4.68% here, and 3.08% here. So not touching it.
Yeah, I am curious about, don't hit me with a bag of oranges here, but I am curious about a prop that did stick out to me. So what are the finish numbers for Jasmine and Silva here? Because they have the finish only, the scorecard equals no action for Silva, sitting at plus 160. And I kind of thought if it finishes, I think it comes from that Silva side. So do the finish numbers back that up?
Well, that's a cheeky bet because, here's the good news. The good news is that Natalia Silva finishes 10 over 12 wins inside the distance. That's 83%. And Jasmine Jasdovicius, 43% finish rate. So Silva, the much better finisher. But here's the problem. Jasdovicius has never been finished, and Natalia Silva has been finished in 3 of her 5 losses. However, the good news is that Silva was finished early in her career, long time ago. And when she started her career, I think she started at the age of 17. So I think she might have started off something like 3-1. And then I think she's won 9 of her last 10 fights. So Natalia Silva is still very young, but she's shown good finishing potential, but she's been finished. But I think she was getting finished at the age of 19, 20, when she was new. Now she's 25, 26. And Jasmine's not exactly finishing anybody high level either. So I think that this thing probably does go to decision, but I think the Natalia Silva finish only prop at plus money, that's not a bad look. And a lot of people are saying she's live to win by submission here. Kay Hansen couldn't finish her. Kay's a good submission grappler, but Silva is a 125er naturally, so she might be big enough. Armbar from guard could possibly happen here. And Jasdovicius does wrestle. So I think that finish only prop's a good look. But in terms of the time props, they're priced in a way that makes me just say I'm not touching it.
Yeah, I agree. And then, you were correct. So she's finished 3 times. She's been finished 3 times, but she was finished in her very first professional fight back in 2015, which that would have made her, 17, 18 years old?
Yep, exactly.
And another finish loss in 2015 as well. By submission, and then another finish loss. So, all 3 of her finish losses do come when she was around 17, 18 years old.
And the most recent loss was a decision to Marina Rodriguez. Yeah. So, if Marina Rodriguez isn't finishing her now that she's starting to mature as a fighter and get a little bit older, it's hard to see Jasmine finishing her. So I might even take a look at that Silva finish only prop. That's not a bad look. The only thing that worries me, it's a UFC debut. There could be an adrenaline dump and she could get finished late. But, it's an interesting look.
Yeah, you might need to get the oranges out because yeah, Jasmine slows down in general in the third round. So I don't know. Plus 160, I think that's a solid look. I might be taking a shot at that, but we will move on to the next fight. We have Adrian Yanez going against Tony Kelley. This is the last fight on the prelims, an absolute banger. Definitely looking forward to this one. We have the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 120. Under 2.5 is minus 110. The fight goes to decision plus 115. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 145. Weezy, what is sticking out here on this one?
So we see this big red block right here, and that's because Yanez has 3 career losses. He's never been finished. And Kelley has 2 career losses. He's never been finished. So we got 2 very durable guys here that have never been finished in a 5-fight losing sample size. So that always gets me looking at the fight goes to decision here. And then we look, we've got 8 total fights between these 2 guys at the UFC level. 5 of them are wins inside the distance. But let's rattle off the inside the distance names, for Yanez. Brady Huang, Victor Rodrigues, the Gustavo Lopez, right? And then after that, it was Randy Costa. So not high-level guys that he's finishing. Tony Kelley will be the highest level guy of the guys that he's finished so far in those names. And then Davey Grant, who's known for being incredibly durable. No shame in not finishing that dude. So we see a situation here where the fight goes to decision is at plus money, 43.86% implied probability. 50% of fights are going the distance at men's 135-pound range. So we've got a 6.7% edge over the books here based on the divisional decision rate of 50.56% when we're only paying 43.86%. And now if we go down here, we're going to see 3 of their 8 fights have went to decision. That's 37.5%. And based on that, we're overpaying by 6.4%. So the thing that I see on tape, which gets me betting the fight goes here, is that Yanez and Kelley both have ridiculous chins on them. So I don't really see either guy getting submitted because between these 2 guys in 8 combined UFC fights, there's only 1 takedown attempt between the 2 of them. So this should be a striking match at striking distance for the majority of the fight. But Tony Kelley pressured Costa very well. He had a great game plan in that fight. And we could see him push Yanez up against the cage and maybe test his wrestling defense a little bit. His wrestling defense is 100% so far. Yanez has stopped all 6 takedown attempts against him, but that's only in 5 fights. So nobody's really wrestling this guy. Nobody's really trying to push him up against the cage. If Kelley goes in there with that game plan, I don't think you're finishing Yanez, and I think it's going to be Yanez's finishing equity goes much lower when he's not spending 14, 15 minutes in the center of the cage at boxing range. So I like the fight goes to decision here at plus money. And what is the best line that we can get? Because I had plus 128, but I don't think that's there anymore.
Now the best line is plus 115.
Plus 115. But yeah, you see what I'm saying here. Five combined losses. These guys are very durable. They both have great chins. And it's not like a striker versus grappler matchup where one guy's deficient where the other guy's strong. These guys are both very strong in the striking realm, and they both have excellent conditioning. So I see this going to decision.
Yeah, this is a spot where I've been looking for a parlay piece to connect this up with all week, and nothing's really sticking out. Maybe that'll change throughout the show, but I really like that over 1.5 rounds. I think it's pretty mispriced here, especially considering Yanez being a very, very slow starter. Over 1.5 is only minus 190 on 5 dimes. I think this does cruise over. Fight goes to decision plus 115. The over 2.5 that's currently sitting around minus 110 pick'em. So. Yeah, I really like that over 1.5, especially. I'm going to be taking a look at maybe parlaying that with something if something else sticks out. But right there with you. Both guys very, very durable. If there is a finish in this fight, it probably does come from Yanez. But again, Tony Kelley, very good chin, never been knocked out. I think it's a solid look, Weezy.
I think it's an excellent look, and it's still plus money too. And even at plus 115, we're still getting a 4% edge over the divisional decision rate of 50.56%. So I think it's a good bet. And what I see on tape backs up that bet. So, my eyes are telling me that it goes to decision, and the data is also telling me that it probably goes to decision.
Yep, and we have the very first donation on the MMA engine. Glimbot, thank you so much. He's saying
Making history.
Yes, he just made history. I mean, I appreciate this a ton. Congratulations, guys, on the 1K. JJ by split because of Texas. What do you guys think? You're talking about Jasmine, Jazz the Vicious. Well, hey, why not? It probably goes to decision. It's probably greasy and close. What is JJ by split, Glimbot? But yeah, I mean, yeah, I why not? Why not? Any thoughts about that? Probably goes to decision. Probably close, split decision.
I could see it being a split decision. I mean, Jazz the Vicious by split decision is plus 650. Silva by split decision is plus 1,500.
Oh, shit.
Neither of these girls are from Texas, though. So I think that's important. I don't think Texas plays into this so much other than we're just expecting their judging to be horrible. But guess what? The judging's horrible pretty much everywhere. I hate to tell you guys. Sal D'Amato, they give this dude plane tickets. How is he not on the no-fly list? I mean, like, we've got a no-fly list in this country. Why aren't we using it for good things, like keeping Sal D'Amato someplace remote so that he would have to drive to fuck up people's scorecards?
I have maybe a conspiracy on why we are still seeing Sal D'Amato, but yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we should not see Sal D'Amato. But yeah, Glimbot plus 650. I don't hate a shot on that as well. Maybe the fight ends in split in general is probably even a little bit better there, and it's probably plus money as well. So we'll move on to the next fight, though. We have Gregory Rodrigues going against Julian Marquez. We have the fight goes to decision, is sitting at minus or plus 155. The fight doesn't go to decision, is sitting at minus 190 on Bet Online. And over 2.5 plus 115. The under 2.5 is minus 145. Weezy, this is one that I'm really struggling with because I feel like there could really be a finish in this fight. Both guys are very dangerous, but it's the durability of Julian Marquez. It's kind of making me lean decision here. I think it's a great spot for Rodrigues if he does choose to come in here and fight smart. But Marquez, I mean, you need a shovel, a baseball bat, a steel chair to knock this guy out. I guess Rodrigues could potentially submit him, but I'm kind of leaning the other way. I'm kind of leaning Rodrigues by decision. So I don't know if I'm going to lay that minus 200 just about for that fight doesn't go. But I'm really curious to see where the numbers line up with this one, Weezy.
Yeah, these guys are savage finishers. 100% finish rate for Marquez, 9 of 9. 81% finish rate for Rodrigues, 9 of 11. So 90% of their 20 wins have finished inside the distance. And Rodrigues has been finished in 2 of his 4 losses, but Julian Marquez has never been finished. And that's because they still won't let you bring a gun into the cage, which I think is a good rule. Because you fight and the gun takes the fight out of it. It takes all the fun out of everything. So 20 out of 26 of their combined fights have finished inside the distance at 77%. So we see a lot of green there, but we see a lot of red here because these guys are both, especially Marquez, fairly durable. Here at the UFC numbers, 9 total fights, 6 of them have finished inside the distance. So that's 2/3. That is 11% better than the finish rate for the division, which is 55%. And it's a 3.7% edge on the fight doesn't go to decision prop, which is sitting at 62.96% if it's at minus 170. The problem with betting the fight doesn't go is Rodrigues is the favorite, and rightfully so. I think he's the much better fighter here overall. But Marquez's his durability is like George St. Pierre's wrestling. It's like Anderson Silva's striking. It's like Jonathan Pierce's conditioning and Colby Covington's conditioning in wrestling. It's elite. This guy could do like Jackass after he's done, and it could just be Julian Marquez getting hit in the head with shit, and we would be dying laughing because Julian would just be like smiling after getting hit in the head with a shovel, and you have Steve-O probably putting a power drill through his skull, and he would just stand there. So I don't see Rodrigues finishing Marquez unless it's by submission because he doesn't have gills. You could be durable, but you still need to breathe. We all need to breathe. So maybe he could get a submission, but I bet 1 unit on the Julian Marquez finish only prop. So if the fight goes to decision, the bet is void, you get your money back. But if there is a finish, because Marquez is the underdog, you get Marquez at plus money, plus 160. for the finish only prop. So I bet that because I think that if there's a finish, it comes from Marquez. And I think if it goes to decision, it's probably going to be Rodrigues winning the decision. So I would suggest also a decision prop for Rodrigues, but because he's already a favorite, there's probably not a lot of value in that line. It's probably almost minus 300. So the finish only prop for Marquez is how I'm playing this because I feel like the finish equity is all on one side. So I don't want to just bet fight doesn't go to decision here. What's Marquez inside the distance?
Marquez inside the distance is plus 275.
Yeah, see, like, and if you are of like minds with me and you think that the finish comes from the Marquez side, why not bet Marquez inside the distance or bet that finish only prop? Because minus 170 for the fight doesn't go includes finishes from Marquez and Rodrigues. And it's just hard to see Rodrigues getting a finish here just because Marquez's durability is legendary.
Yeah, he'll have to take his arm off or submit him if he does finish him. But I'm right there with you. I mean, I feel like fight goes to decision. I feel like this fight does go to decision. I feel like it's Rodrigues taking him down, but I can't do it. I mean, these guys, if you bet the fight goes to decision, you are going to be taking a couple of years off your life. I think there's going to be a lot of instances where this fight is very close to finishing. So, yeah, I kind of lean with the fight goes with the Rodrigues decision there. But, yeah, Marquez finish only, plus 150 now. I think that's a really good spot. Like you said, you can't bring weapons into the cage. And if you can't, I don't know if he's going to knock out Julian Marquez.
If he did, it would be a spectacular feat. It really would be a spectacular feat. And he did knock out the Iron Turtle. And the Iron Turtle is another guy with durability. But, the Iron Turtle's a former 170er. Like Marquez is a giant of a man. So, yeah, I like the finish only prop here, but the time props are just not sticking out. And to go fight goes for this fight between these two killers with a 90% finish rate, I want more of an edge over the books than 3.15%. It's not enough to lose those years of my life watching this thing saying no violence. It doesn't make sense, man.
Absolutely not. It'd be a big sweat for sure, but we will keep moving on. We have Damir Ismagulov going against Guram Kutateladze. We have the over-under set at 2.5. The over 2.5 minus 240. Under 2.5 is plus 190. The fight goes to decision is minus 190. And the fight doesn't go to decision is plus 155. Kind of like the last one. I feel like Ismagulov wins this fight. I feel like he wins it by decision. But if Guram does win this fight, I feel like it's going to have to be inside the distance by knockout, him landing something big. So I think if you are on the Guram side, I don't hate a shot on that scorecards equals no action. It was plus 110 earlier in the week. It's now plus 100. I think he's kind of finish dependent here. I think the minute winner is going to be Ismagulov. Can Ismagulov finish Kutateladze? I'm not so sure. I mean, he's very tough, Kutateladze. I mean, maybe he could submit him, but I just lean towards that Damir decision there. So I think, kind of like the last one, I think if there is a finish, it is probably from that Guram side. I don't hate a shot on that scorecard. Equals no action at plus money for Guram. Any thoughts on this one, Weezy?
Yeah, so fight goes to decision sitting at minus 180. So it's juiced up almost 2/3, 64.3%. We're overpaying by 15.5% based on the divisional decision rate of 49.13%. So for lightweight fights, it's about 50-50. Half go the distance, half don't. So we see that none of the 5 combined fights between these two guys has finished inside the distance at the UFC level. So that should get you looking here at fight goes to decision. That's the bet here. But like you said, finish only prop for Kutateladze is interesting. But when I go back and I watch the Ismagulov tape, it's not like this guy's not swinging occasionally. It's not like he doesn't throw a massive uppercut where if it lands square, you're going down. It's just we haven't seen it land yet, and we've seen him use some wrestling. I really do think that this fight goes to decision, but we're overpaying based on that 49% decision rate because we're paying a 64% implied probability. But, 5 of their 5 fights have went to decision. So that's a 35% edge over the books based on these guys' decision rates at the UFC level. And it's a decent sample size at 5 out of 5. But I think the cheekiest way to play this would be If you're not already on that fight goes to decision, just wait. Just wait. You got to see Damir Ismagulov on the scale. And then, like, Kutateladze's body looks like a fucking anatomy chart. There is literally 0% body fat on this guy. So it worries me about his ability to be able to take a punch because I can see all of his ribs, and that's not normal. So, I think you wait to see if Ismagulov looks bad on the scales. If he looks like shit on the scales, maybe take that fight doesn't go at plus 140, probably be even better plus 150 potentially. Even you got it at plus 155 there.
Yeah.
That would probably be the way to play this, a sneaky way. Am I parlaying time props on this one? No. But if Ismagulov and Kutateladze look good on the scale, I think the bet would probably be fight goes. And if they don't, I think the bet would be fight doesn't go. But other than that, before getting that information, I'm not rushing to the window either way.
Absolutely. And I think it's a very, very good point to bring up. How does Damir look on the scales? So, yep, I agree with that one. If he looks bad, I'm not going to be touching this fight. But yeah, if he looks bad, I mean, why not a shot on that plus 155 fight as a good decision? If it looks like he completely killed himself to make weight, why not? It would definitely scare me away from betting the fight goes to decision. So yeah, I think that was one that is very important to see the scales there. But we'll move on to the next fight. We have Albert Duraev going against Joaquin Buckley. Really looking forward to this one. We have the over-under is set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5 is minus 150. The under 1.5 is plus 120. The fight goes to decision is plus 170. And the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 210 on Bet Online. Looks like the best price out there is actually minus 180. Weezy, is there any sticking out here besides some violence?
Yeah. How about all that green that we see on the screen right there? A lot of green, right? 22 of 29 combined wins inside the distance for Buckley and Duraev. That's 76%. And then look at that. 6 of 7 losses inside the distance. So these guys are getting finished at an 85.7% rate. So 28 out of 36 of their combined pro fights are finishing inside the distance. That's almost 78%. That's like a 12% edge over where the current line is priced at minus 190. So at minus 190, we're only overpaying by about 10% based on the divisional finish rate, which is 55.18%. So 55% to 65%, 10% overpaying. Not bad because 6 of their 8 combined fights have finished inside the distance at the UFC level. That's 75%, and it could be 7 of 8. Dude, Kopylov almost had Duraev at the beginning of the second round, and then Duraev, when he got top position and went in the mouth, ground and pounded the shit out of him for 3.5 rounds. It just didn't get stopped. So I see with a 9.5% edge here, based on the 75% finish rate, a 20% edge over the 55% finish rate of the division here. At minus 190, I'm calling this a parlay piece. It's our first fight doesn't go to decision bet that has stuck out thus far, but this is the first violent spot. 6 of 7 combined pro losses inside the distance. Both guys finishing at over a 75% clip. And we've got a striker versus grappler matchup where if it stays standing, we know that Buckley's going to be extremely live for a knockout because Duraev's been knocked out in all 3 of his pro losses. And if it goes to the ground, we've seen what a master, what a wizard Duraev is on the ground. He probably gets that rear naked choke or a ground and pound victory. So minus 190, fight doesn't go to decision. Love it.
Yeah, I'm glad we get some violent. I mean, this line, it just makes no sense. I mean, not only from the numbers perspective, but the matchup stylistically. Duraev, I mean, the guy has a terrible chin, terrible fight IQ. Buckley could absolutely knock this guy out at any point in the fight. Buckley has a ton of power. And then on the flip side, Duraev's ground game is no joke. He almost killed Roman Kopylov. And if some refs would have probably stopped that fight. He got into mount with 2 or 3 minutes left in the round. I'm not sure how he didn't finish Kopylov, but I feel like Duraev is definitely live for that sub, for that TKO. And on the feet, I think Duraev is a liability. I mean, this guy's kind of sloppy on the feet. He's willing to stand and bang, test his strike. If he does it against Buckley, he can very well get knocked out. But yeah, I got this. I bet this early in the week at I think Monday or Tuesday at minus 190. I could have swore the line would have moved, but no, it has stayed right there. minus 190, and it looks like Caesars actually has minus 180, which is the best line out there. Does minus 180 change anything there, make it look better?
Minus 180 is better. I mean, it's we go from 65% to 64%, so it's even 1% better. We get an additional 1% edge. And, like I say, 10.7% better than the implied probability of the line is the 6 of 8 fights that these guys that have finished inside the distance. And we just said it could be 7 of 8, So, and even that Buckley Razak Al Hassan fight, I mean, those guys were both laying on the floor after the third round bell rang for like a minute and a half. They were holding hands. They were exhausted. So, I really do see this fight finishing. And I mean, I probably would parlay it up to minus 250. So at minus 180 on Caesars, feels like a good spot.
Yep, the line doesn't make much sense to me, but we'll definitely see what happens there. Moving on, we have Kevin Holland going against Tim Means. Another interesting fight, I think, from a prop perspective. So we have the over is minus 120. The under is minus 110, about a pick 'em there. The fight goes to decision is plus 100, and the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 130. I mean, Kevin Holland, one of the most durable fighters in the UFC. Like, this guy can take a shot. His chin's unreal. Never been knocked out in his career, and I'm really convinced he never will. Maybe I jinxed it there, but yeah, I think if there is a finish in this fight, it is probably from Holland. And then you see Holland, he's minus 340. I think the fight doesn't go here is something I'd look at, but even more specifically, I really like Kevin Holland inside the distance. Tim Means finished 7 times, 5 by sub, 2 by knockout. I think Holland inside the distance at plus money is a great look. But is there anything sticking out in terms of the fight as a whole, in terms of the fight goes or doesn't go easy?
It looks like a pretty well-priced line right here. So we've got a good sample size of UFC fights between these two guys, 39 of them, right? And 18 of them have finished inside the distance. It's 46.2%. And it's important to note that 46% number is very accurate because it's Holland's fights are finishing 46.7% and Means' fights are finishing 45.8%. So those numbers, are pretty uniform on both sides of it here. So 46.2% of their fights have finished inside the distance, and we're paying 50% for fight doesn't go right now at plus 100. So we're overpaying by 3.8% based there, by 2.2% based on the divisional finish rate, and by 1.62% based on the divisional finish rate versus the implied probability. So yeah, it's really well priced, so it really depends on your read. The thing for me is that Kevin Holland is moving down. And that is a situation where he, in my opinion, this makes him even more dangerous than he was at 185. And he was already finishing at 185 at a 60% rate. So, and then we've seen Means lose inside the distance 4 of 9 times, and he's getting finished by, 170 pounders, not middleweights. So, I'm edging fight doesn't go to decision here, but if you look at the template, we're not getting an edge. We're overpaying by about 3.8% based on the fight doesn't go. We're overpaying by about 2.7% based on the fight goes. And it's really easy for bookies to price these lines when they are as even as they are. 45% or 46% for Means, 47% for Holland here on their inside the distance rates. And then you've got 39 fights, so you can just price that line so that you're getting an edge, a 3.8% edge based on the fight doesn't go, and a 2.7% edge based on the fight goes. So it's perfectly priced. Nothing is really sticking out. That being said, I kind of like Holland inside the distance here. Maybe a Holland finish only prop. And the one thing that I really haven't heard anybody talk about is everybody's saying, Tim Means, great veteran. He's seen it all. One thing that he hasn't seen, Brady, is somebody that's going to talk as much shit as Kevin Holland is right in front of him for the entire fight. I think even the most decorated, experienced veteran, that's going to get into their head and make them do things that they normally wouldn't do. So I'm leaning fight doesn't go, but I can't tell you that there's a data-driven reason to bet it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Yeah, Kevin Holland will be talking some shit, because I remember D-Rod was actually talking some shit to Tim Means, and then like 30 seconds later, D-Rod just hurts him bad, ends up submitting him. So yeah, I mean, definitely could happen there. But yeah, I'm with you. I think first of all, the Holland scorecards equals no action is minus 300, so they're definitely all over it there. But yeah, I mean, if this fight does finish, I am really convinced it is on the Holland side. I'd be shocked if Tim Means was the first person to knock out Kevin Holland. So yeah, I'm on that Kevin Holland inside the distance. FanDuel actually had it at plus 185 earlier in the week. I'm not sure if it's still there. If it is, I love that. It's still plus 175. Looks like on Bet Rivers and Unibet. I think that's much better than laying minus 300 on a guy like Holland. But yeah, I am expecting some violence there, and I'm also expecting some violence in the very next fight. We have Donald Cerrone going against Joe Lauzon. The over-under is set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5 minus 145. Under 1.5 is plus 115. The fight goes to decision is plus 175. The fight doesn't go is minus 215. The best line out there on that fight doesn't go is minus 200. This was a fight that we were supposed to see a month ago, or not a month ago. A month ago. We were supposed to see this a month ago. I had a bet on the fight doesn't go. And I have a bet on the fight doesn't go again a month later. So Weezy, what are the stats saying about this one? And also there's a bunch of narrative stuff in this fight as well, which makes it even more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so we've got a huge sample size, obviously, between Lauzon and Cerrone. This is about as good of a UFC sample size as we're ever going to see. 43 fights have finished inside the distance out of their combined 64 UFC fights. The losses are finishing inside the distance 56% of the time, and the wins 76.3% of the time. So that gives us 67.2% finish rate for these guys at the UFC level. That's 16% better than the lightweight clip of 50.87%. And the implied probability of the line at minus 200, which is 66.67%, is underpriced by 0.5%. And the narrative things is what we're looking at here. We're talking about two guys who, when this fight is over, they will have 99 career fights between them, and they will be almost a combined 80 years old. Donald Cerrone, I mean, he's in Thailand hanging out with Quinton Rampage Jackson. I mean, I was just saying earlier, I think they're going to take Quinton's foot soon, dude. The guy's like 300 pounds. I think he might be a diabetic. And he's hanging out in Thailand or the Philippines, somewhere over there shooting a movie. He pulled out of the last fight due to weight cut complications and food poisoning or whatever. I don't even know if Cerrone makes weight here. I don't know. This is one I wouldn't be surprised if they moved it to like 160 or 165 the day before, but it just looks like there could be 4 feet out the door. Both of Lauzon's feet could be out the door. Both the Cerrone's feet, I think, definitely are out the door here. So, it's just hard to picture either one of these guys wanting to fight for a full 15 minutes at their age, knowing that both of these guys are talking retirement already. So I see it finishing inside the distance. Minus 200 is overpriced by 15.8% based on this 16.3% minus the half of 1%. So that is a little bit overpriced. But when we see that we've got 64 UFC fights between these guys and they're finishing at a 67.2% clip, that tells us that minus 200 really isn't overpriced based on what these guys are doing. And then you look at their fights finishing inside the distance recently, and they're getting finished or finishing. So I do like the fight doesn't go here at minus 200, and I think it's a parlay piece.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I like it. This stylistically, I think Joe Lauzon goes out there and rushes them and maybe finishes them early. And I'm actually going to place a bet on the Joe Lauzon first round prop at almost, I think it's like plus 470. Especially after hearing all the narrative stuff with Donald Cerrone, I don't think he wants to be here. I really don't. And I feel like if Joe Lauzon goes out there and tries to take off his head, I feel like Cerrone's he's gonna look for a way out. So Lauzon round 1, I'm gonna take a hard look. I'm gonna be betting that. And then I mean, if you like Lauzon, like the money line's plus 140, like his win condition is gonna be in first round. So I like that. And then I do like the fight doesn't go to decision. Lauzon round 1 covers that. And then it also covers, I think, Cerrone's live round 1, round 2, after Lauzon does kind of blow his wad there. So, yeah, I think fight doesn't go is pretty solid, minus 200. I did get it earlier in the week around minus 182 on FanDuel. And I would still honestly bet it here at minus 200 on DraftKings Sportsbook. So, yeah, liking some violence there in the co-main event. And if Joe Lauzon does finish Cowboy Cerrone in the first round, it's going to be a party in Austin, Texas, that's for sure. But we have the main event here. Before we get into it, guys, if you have not already, leave a like on the video. Subscribe here to the MMA Engine. Me and Weezy go live every Thursday, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time, breaking down the card from a prop perspective. And at the end, of course, we're going to give a probability parlay. We're going to try to hit that for you guys this week. And there's a couple spots really sticking out. So we have the main event, Calvin Kattar, Josh Emmett. The over-under set at 4.5 rounds. The over 4.5 is -145. The under 4.5 is +115. The fight goes to decision is -120. The fight doesn't go to decision is -110. And Weezy, I always like breaking down the main events from a stats perspective with you because we look at the 3-round stats and then we go and look at the 5-round stats. And it's always really cool to see the difference between the 3-round and the 5-round. So I'm curious to hear those numbers here, Weezy. What is sticking out for this main event?
Yeah, for sure. Let me just switch my camera again, and that should be better. So, yeah, we've got a fight doesn't go to decision right now that's overpriced by 9.17% based on the 3-round data that we have. But these guys are only finishing their fights at the UFC level. They each have 10 fights. They're finishing inside the distance 40% of the time. And they're going to decision 60% of the time. So we see based on those numbers that the implied probability of the line is overpriced for fight doesn't go by 12.4%, and it's underpriced by 5.5% based on the divisional decision rate. But if we were to look at the UFC 5-round fights here, and just give me a second to search for that because I didn't have it up here. Okay, so we get the 5-round fights from now until from 2013 until present. And there are 42 of them, and 24 of them have finished inside the distance. So it's not a big finish rate. 24 divided by 42. Let me get my calculator. That's calendar. Damn it. All right, so
what is it? I can. Oh, you got it.
24 divided by 42.
That is 57.
So 57%, if we're looking at the prop template, would be the divisional. So right now, 43% is the number that we see, but it's actually 57%. So if these guys are finishing inside the distance 40% of the time, that's not even as good as the 57% that they're finishing inside the distance, but that would make this line here actually underpriced by about 4.6%. I think that this fight finishes inside the distance. Kattar has only been finished once in 5 career losses. It was by submission. The guy's got a cast iron chin, but let's face it. If there's one guy besides Jeremy Stephens that he's faced so far that could crack it, it's this guy, Emmett, a guy with 11 knockdowns in 7 featherweight career fights. So, and Kattar, I think Kattar finishes this guy. Kattar has knocked out about half of the opponents that he's faced at the 4 of 7 that he's faced at the UFC level. And when he hurts somebody, he swarms. So he gets finishes when he lands that big shot. He's going to have 5 rounds to land that big shot. And Emmett's been knocked out once before. He got knocked out by Jeremy Stephens, a guy that Calvin Kattar knocked out. So fight doesn't go to decision at -120 is a 54% implied probability. Sorry, it's a 52% implied probability. But we said the finish rate was what?
57.
It's a slight edge. It's a 5% edge, but they're only finishing inside the distance at a 40% clip combined. So it would be a stay away for me.
Yeah, so we talked about this one on the main event deep dive on Monday. I took a shot on the fight ends in KO at +130.
That moved, didn't it?
It moved on FanDuel, but it's still there on DraftKings as far. Yeah, it's still there on DraftKings. But yeah, on FanDuel it's +105, but on DraftKings it's still +130. I mean, I'd be shocked if there was a submission. What does +130 do to the line? Anything?
Well, that makes it 43.48%. And so if we're paying 43.48%, but we know that 5-round featherweight fights are finishing at a 57% clip, that's a 14% edge over the implied probability of the line. We like that. That benchmark gives us 14%. But we do have to keep in mind that only 8 of 20 of their combined fights at the UFC level have finished inside the distance. And a couple of those are 5-round, but most of them are 3. So, like I say, the fight ends in KO. Much more interesting if you can get it at plus 130, because I don't see either of these guys submitting the other one. I don't really even see this fight going to the ground at all. So that makes it a lot more interesting. If you're willing to bet the violence prop, I would suggest going fight ends by KO to take it from minus money to plus 130. And then that way we are getting that 14% edge over the books in terms of the finish rate of the division for 5-round fights.
Yep, sounds good. Like, I don't think it's like fight ends KO is like a smash spot or anything, but I think they're going to stand and bang for 25 minutes. And both guys have a ton of power. So, yeah, like Calvin Kattar, never been knocked out, never been knocked down, but my goodness, Josh Emmett, this guy hits like a truck. And then I think Kattar hits really hard as well. So, yeah, don't mind a shot on that. But yeah, Weezy went through 14 fights here. So, the last thing left we have is the probability parlay. Is there anything that is sticking out that you really like here?
So the spots that I wrote down were fight goes to decision for Kutateladze, minus 120. Fight goes to decision for Ramos Chavez, minus 165. Fight goes to decision for McGee Wells, minus 138. Fight goes to decision for Yanez Kelley, plus money, plus 115. I love the fight doesn't go for Buckley Duraev at minus 190. I love the fight doesn't go for Cerrone Lauzon at minus 200. So I think that those two are parlay pieces. And then maybe we add one more. So we'll take the 2 violent spots. I mean, you agree with me on that, right? The Buckley Duraev violent spot at minus 190 and the Cerrone Lauzon violent spot at minus 200. Those are pretty nice parlay pieces, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, my night comes down to those fights finishing, so I hope so, but yeah, I totally agree. And that comes out to plus 129 for those 2.
Plus 129 for just those 2. That's not bad. That's not bad. I don't even think we need to add anything else there, because I kind of feel like if people, I already bet 1.2 units on the Dawkins fight goes. So, and I've already got 1.4 units on the over 2.5 for McGee Wells at minus 140. So I've already got bets on those. But and I've already got Yanez Kelley fight goes in my greasy 4-legger, along with the 2 that we just talked about for fight doesn't go. So yeah, I think that that's a pretty good one. We can just do the 2 violent spots. We'll get plus money on it.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Plus money for those 2. I like it. Let's see what the chat's saying. Brandon's saying he has the over 1.5 in the Yanez fight, parlayed with the Buckley fight doesn't go. What does that come out to, Brandon? Is that plus money? I think that's plus money as well. I think that's a solid look. Nathan liking the over 1.5 in the Kattar fight as a parlay piece. I don't hate that. Yeah, those 2 violent spots are pretty solid. Plus 129 for those. I'm just curious, what happens if we throw that over 1.5 in there for the Yanez, around plus 249, plus 250?
Ooh, now that I like, because I mean the over 1.5 is a nice spot there. I think let's add that in there.
I like that, around plus 250 for that over 1.5 for the Yanez fight. So we have the fight doesn't go in the Cerrone fight, the fight doesn't go in the Buckley fight, and the over 1.5 in the Yanez fight, around plus 250. I think that is a very, very solid parlay, and if that hits, it's going to be a pretty good night, honestly. So I do like that a lot, Weezy.
I like it a lot too, man. I'm going to be putting that in after the show. That works out for me.
Sounds good to me. So, lastly, Weezy, we'll kick it around. I think you're done with content for the week. So let the people know where they can find you and what you have going on in the future here.
Yeah, so I'll be on the Pub Sports Radio watch along for the fights on Saturday, and then Sunday Brady and I will be back on Pub Sports Radio for Stat Diggers, 6:15 Central Time. And then you can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy, doing balls deep breakdowns of fights, doing Just the Tip every Tuesday night, Ask Weezy every Wednesday night. And you can find me right here on the MMA Engine channel, where thanks to Glenbot, I believe, we got our first donation of the iteration of this channel, which is now monetized on YouTube. So I'd like to thank everybody that got us to 1,000 subscribers. I'd like to thank everybody that's been supporting the channel by watching us, by big upping that thumbs up button, and just by supporting us. We really appreciate all of you guys, and we hope you're really liking the content that we're putting out here at the MMA Engine.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. You guys can find me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. We typically do a best bet stream 1 hour prior to the prelims. We actually did that earlier before this show. So if you've not seen that yet, go check out Best Bet. It's on my channel. My betting breakdown video will be coming out tomorrow morning as well. All my content should be out by tomorrow morning there. So yeah, it's going to be a fun card. Looking forward to it. Lots of spots that stick out. There are a couple bets that I need to add in. And yeah, it should be a very fun card. I do want to mention that Lou and Monk will be going live at midnight. So if you guys are up, go check out Lou and Monk. They're going to be doing their happy hour. Lou's going to be out of town as well, so he's getting that in there tonight on midnight. So check them out. Leave a like on your way out. Subscribe, all the good stuff. Appreciate you guys as always, and best of luck for UFC Austin. Let us make some money. We'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.